Good morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I am Brigid Burke. And after a day off, today is the 18th of February 2025. And I am, it's up, nice sunny day, cold, much colder. This week's supposed to be very, very cold here in here where I live anyway. But today is technically a day off for me, other than doing this live stream and running, a couple of minor things. Usually I like to give myself Monday and Tuesday off during the week. And yesterday, I had quite a bit to do. I had a podcast to record for my other channel. And it was a lot of research that went into this particular one. And I had to get all the audio together. So that was posted last night. And good morning, Alex. And hello, Sam. Speaking of yesterday's podcast, which I know is the one that you have been waiting on. And I mentioned you in it as well. So yes, so very cool. And I got your message this morning, which I am totally going to get back to you on, obviously. Today is interesting. Today's the first day of Pisces season, okay? And it's interesting. And Kathleen is on. Good morning. The beginning of Pisces season. So Pisces season is literally, this is the last sign in the zodiac. It's often connected with the 12th house and 12th house energies, which are, as we've said, that is the house where from which our soul can be liberated, and it's also the house of our self-undoing. So Pisces has the potential to go either way, really. If we are looking for a sure and concrete thing, it's not necessarily the best energy. However, it is a good energy for letting things go, and it's definitely a good energy for moving ahead on certain things. Finishing up old business, I think, is where I'm going with this. And also with Mars being still retrograde, Mars goes direct again around the 23rd, 24th, though. So things that where we feel like we're frustrated and they're not moving ahead, I think we're going to see that by the time Mars goes direct, that things are going to start moving again. But Piscean space it's imaginative, it's dreamy, it's focused on the collective. But it also can obscure what's going on. There can be a sense of, what do I trust? What's real? And now, before I actually get into this, what I decided I was going to do today is because we're at the beginning of Pisces season, I thought, okay, let's do a reading for Pisces season. So I actually have a full horoscope spread laid out in front of me right now. And I wanted to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Cartouche, and I also have the astrology cards to clarify those. So all of that is going to be here, and I am going to talk about that. But for those of you, those of you who are regulars will certainly know this. I had a weird thing happen last night where I was woken up about midnight with somebody whistling right next to my bed. It was kind of like the that kind of whistle that people make when they're trying to get your attention. Like that, I'm not gonna be able to imitate it. But and I was just like, where did that come from? It was like literally right on my right side, and then my right ear started buzzing like crazy too. So I don't know. I feel like there was like something was coming through last night. Like somebody was trying to give me a message. I don't know. Again, I have some feelings about what it might be about. Because I also have a thing that when I look outside, I have a graveyard, actually, not right in front of my house. My neighbor's yard is in front, but beyond his yard is the graveyard. And when I look at the graveyard, there's every now and again, there's something that happens where one of the gravestones starts to glow at the top. Now, your first thought would be, oh, okay, it's the reflection of a car light, or somebody's, turned their light on in the back and it's just reflecting on that. And good morning, Suda. But it does not happen on a regular basis, even though like my neighbors get up and go to work at the same time and they turn their lights on at the same time, because I was always trying to go, well, maybe it's this light, maybe it's that. No, there's just something that goes on with it. And I had this last February that it happened, and then it just didn't happen for ages, and now it's happening again. So I don't quite know. I feel like there's some message in the environment. And I mentioned this in the context of Pisces season because I do feel like we're kind of I don't know, we're coming and going. There's something that's being let go of. Like I feel like that's you know, I feel like that was kind of like a pay attention. There's something that you're going to need to let go of. So yeah, so we'll see what that has to do with, you know, at least for me. But I always like share these little things that happen. Now, interestingly, the other thing I think I had mentioned a couple of, was it last week or the week before, where I was putting my coffee together actually downstairs for the next day. It was like I do it at night and then I get up in the morning and then I can just turn it on. And I happened to look outside and I mentioned how I saw that weird kind of thing that was like shrouded and almost like a cloud, and then it had kind of made this puff and took off. I mean, I think I spoke about that. And I found a video just popped up in my YouTube feed where somebody was seeing the exact same kind of a thing in New Mexico. And somebody told them, oh no, that's what happens with a rocket launch. Like you're actually seeing like the bottom end of the rocket, like this kind of a thing. And I'm like, okay, maybe that's what that was. But first of all, it hung in the sky in one place for like 10 minutes. And I'm like, I don't think that happens in a rocket launch. Secondly, I don't live in a place anywhere near where people do rocket launches. Like I can see like out, if you were down in Florida, for example, or if you're in New Mexico or even California, there may be places out there where there's the space to, you know, to have those kinds of big rocket launches. And maybe you're going to say, oh, well, it was just something up in the atmosphere and you just happened to see it. But it was going, I don't know, it was headed northwest. And like I said, it stayed in one place for a long time and then it moved. And I'm like, well, I don't think that happens with a rocket launch. I think it just goes on its little merry journey and then it'll eventually drop off and do its thing. So I don't know if that was an explanation for it or not, but since I mentioned it last week, I thought I would bring that up. So, okay. So what I was doing today, if you've just joined me, is I'm going to actually do a Pisces reading. We are beginning of Pisces season, so I thought I would do a full horoscope spread before Pisces season. And I have it laid out already. And of course, as you all know, I start with my cartouche cards because that is the system that I've known the longest, and for some reason. And Alistair, hello, and Sadita, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Good morning. So yeah, so I am going to do this Pisces reading. And okay, so the first thing that I'm seeing here in this full horoscope spread, when I look at the first house, we have Crook and Flail. So Crook and Flail in the first house has a lot to do with our personal social status. It has to do with how we see ourselves. And so yeah, so this, when I see this in the first house, I think our self-confidence and our need for recognition becomes something that's kind of center stage. So there's almost this idea that you want to be focused on being confident and being sure of yourself, because Crook and Flail has a lot to do with discipline as well. It's the idea, it's got a very strong 10th house energy in the sense of, one, making their way up in the world, through hard work and through effort and through self-discipline. So like I said, there's something a little bit Saturnian about it. And while we have it, and it's interesting, the card that came with it was the 9th house card in the astrology cards. So 9th house has to do with faith. Okay. And 9th house has to do with how we're expanding our horizons. So this is Jupiter energy in connection with this, this more Capricorn type energy in the first house. So I would be saying that we're getting ready to do something new. Okay. As I indicated, Pisces season is a time for letting go. And this is in the house of identity. So this has a lot to do with what we've identified with, who we are. And when I see Crook and Flail in the first house, I often think, okay, sometimes this is to quote Rich Holiday, crisis of confidence. Sometimes it's this crisis of confidence that we have, that we look at this and we think, that, I don't know, that there can be an insecurity. Are we being recognized for our work? Are we doing enough? That kind of a thing. And to see Crook and Flail here indicates, you need to be confident in your work. You need to feel that the direction you're moving in for yourself, the way in which you want to expand your horizons. I mean, this has the word faith on it. So there's this idea here that you want to keep the faith on something. Okay, you're very much need to have faith in yourself. I think that's where that really goes there. And so, yeah, because Piscean energy is something that can really tap into our emotions. It can make us, I don't know, it can make us feel a certain way. It can make us feel like we are, like we don't really know what we're doing or where we're going. It's definitely an energy that is, very. It's often associated with the moon card, because the moon is kind of that last card before the rebirth of the sun. And interestingly, when we think of the spring equinox and Aries season, that is a kind of a rebirth of the sun, so to speak. I mean, you could point to Imbolc around February 1st or 2nd, but this is the real rebirth that takes place, because spring starts. And of course, this spring is going to be a doozy astrologically. We're going to have a lot to talk about with that. But in the meantime, this is like, yeah, we're finishing up, but this is the time when we need to get clear on ourselves and what we're doing. And Sam says, yep, needed that message. Interestingly, I'm just going to jump ahead to the, the house for a minute of the 10th house of Capricorn. And we have Set there. And Suda says, that's super interesting. The message resonates. Yeah, I think a lot of us are feeling that lately, like feeling like, do I know what the heck I'm doing? What the hell am I doing anyway? Yeah, because we see this in terms of our public facing life and our career and things like that. We've got Set here, and Set is that energy that makes us feel anxious. And Joanne's on. Good morning. Good to see you. Yeah, it's this. It's this energy that tells us that we are, yeah, that this is the 10th house energy has to do with where we are, what our public facing life is, what our work is. Okay, what is our work in the world? What gifts are we giving back to the world? And there's an anxiety about that in the 10th house. Am I going to be able to do the things that I want to do? Am I going to be able to move in the direction I'm going to want to go? Am I being recognized for what I'm doing? Or do I feel like there's blocks to that? Or do I feel like I'm being dismissed or criticized, or, whatever that is? And you have it with Nephthys, though, because there's the Pisces card right there. That, yeah, it has to do with things that there are things that have not appeared yet in our lives. And because they have not appeared yet, we are wondering if we're imagining it, right? Am I making this up? Is it, excuse me. Is this really something that is meant for me, or am I just being delusional, right? That's kind of that thing. So there's definitely a sense here that we need to have faith in ourselves and get clear on what it is that we're doing. And speaking of Capricorn energy again, we've got Ta in the 2nd house. Okay, so this is in the house of Taurus. Now, Capricorn and Taurus, that's like a double shot of Earth, right? And when this shows up, excuse me, I'm having that cough thing again, which is kind of weird. When Ta comes up here, okay, so this is about structuring, building, or rebuilding in some cases, because you're reading my mind here. So well, it's I don't know. I think with some of the people on here, Alex, I think we all have kind of this kind of close connection. But presumably anybody who is going to watch this live stream, either now or in replay, this is going to have something for them. So yeah, so it's interesting. So we're restructuring, we're rebuilding. Saturn is more of the Ta is the rather positive masculine energy that we have here. So this is about how we're going to get practical, how we're going to structure things, and we have it with the Sun card. Excuse me. So again, there's that Leo energy, that there's a light shining on this part of things. And so this may be an area that we are scrutinizing. Now, certainly in the USA, if that's where you are, financially, things are a bit weird right now, shall we say. And because things are so weird, I think we're thinking about the structures we have built and what we are going to do with them, or how we might refigure them. Now, again, Capricorn energy tends to be a persistent one. It tends to be the idea of building something up over long term, something happening gradually. But I also feel like this, I'm kind of getting in my head the sun shining on the masculine here. And one of the things I feel that's going on right now is that we are, as I said, I feel like we are in an era that is in its last gasp. Okay, Piscean, and of course Pisces at the end of a cycle, right? We've been hearing a lot about how when the spring equinox comes, that we're going to be at the beginning of like a Kali Yuga, or as I've said, at the end of Dwapara Yuga. Whatever we are, there's definitely some kind of very long-term cycle that's coming to an end, and I think a lot of that does focus on what's going on with our ideas of what we value and our ideas around money and things like that, and luxury and consuming things. So I feel almost like that we're being challenged to use that masculine energy in a positive way rather than the negative way, which would be more about grasping for power and trying to overly control something, or being kind of consumed by greed, which can happen as well with the second house. And again, we're speaking in a broader context here, but I think we are being asked to rethink our values about what we need, how much we need, and our values around, what's mine, because this is the house of your personal finances, like what's yours. And it's interesting because I'm seeing the Sagittarius card in the eighth house, which has to do with joint finances or more community type finances, which have to do with family stuff, but it could also have to do with, the way in which we are trying to use our judgment or to attain stability in a particular matter. So anyway, we'll get to that house. The third house that we have here is Sirius. Okay, and the Sirius is in the house of Mercury. Okay, so that's the house of messages. It's the communications. It's definitely the house of messages, communications, sibling relationships, short distance travel, commerce. If you're in your own business, self-effort is all connected to Mercury. We can also think of technologies and things. Again, Mercury, I've often said, is the house of communication, but it's more the day-to-day kind of stuff rather than, say, I don't know, what you would discuss in a college class or what you might discuss in a spiritual setting, something that's not quite as deep. But we have Sirius here. So again, this is Aquarian energy. This is stirring things up. Now, of course, we do have Mercury retrograde, and I should also note that we have Venus retrograde coming up through most of this period. March, I think Venus retrograde is March 1st, and by March 15th, which is really towards the end of Pisces, is when Mercury goes retrograde, but we will be in that pre-shadow period as of March 1st. So yeah, so there's definitely this idea of Sirius makes us think outside the box. It encourages us to do something different, to look at something in a different way. And the card that we have with it is the Earth element, which is the card of stability. Yeah, so again, rethinking our ideas around money and stability. Now, looking at that with Seth in the 10th house makes me think that if people, let's just say somebody has kind of embarked on their own business, or they're starting to do something or have a sideline or do something like that. What I'm literally hearing in my head right now is the focus should not be money. The focus should not be money. I mean, not that money isn't important. I mean, you obviously can't run a business without money. You have to have finance, you have to have capital, right? But I think a lot of times when we're doing something, especially if we're trying to do something that we feel is authentic to us, that we're communicating about ourselves, then I think what happens is that we get too hung up on what the financial results are going to be. Now, the finances are a part of it. You do have to figure out, okay, what am I going to spend? Do I have enough to spend? What do I need to charge? Things like that definitely can come up in that context. But sometimes we are focused so much on the outcome and the reward that we're not really focused on on the journey of doing it. Okay. And I feel like there's a lot with that, especially if somebody's going in to do something that's creative or something that really speaks to their heart. Like, let's just say, for example, that you're a musician. Okay. And let's just say you want to be, you've recorded some songs, and, so what's the cost involved in doing that? And how much am I going to go put it out on the internet for? And where do I put it? And what kind of return do I get? I mean, that's just an example. But if you're exclusively focused on how much money you're going to make doing it, or any other kind of external goal, like, maybe you know, like all the guys I went to high school with were like, oh yeah, I became a guitarist just to meet women, like, you know, that kind of a thing. And so the idea here is focus on what, you know, no, focus on your art, focus on doing it for its own sake, and the other things that are going to come along will flow. If you spend too much time being focused on the financials of something, then, you know, you might find that you're either not as successful or that you're having a hard time doing things. Now, Joanne says, interesting. I just joined the Boy for Witchcraft TV. Fair representation for all pagan paths. Oh, okay, good. Congratulations. Yeah, I think that it's, yeah, so there's something here about thinking differently. Obviously, the practical is important here, but the fact that I'm seeing this Sun and Ta in the second house, and I'm seeing this Set and Nephthys in the 10th, there definitely seems to be a reason to rethink or to think differently with regard to the way in which we do business and commerce and so forth. And like I said, there's a lot of instability right now in the economy. So that may be part of the factor. We may have to, you know, get creative with the way that we do things financially. But it's a matter of making creative use of the tools that we have. And it's also about, you know, again, remembering that what's really of value here is ourselves and what we're putting into it. And I know for people who are saying, yeah, but I'm not making any money, that may sound very cliche, but truthfully, we always manage to find a way through things. Like the money things sort themselves out, and sometimes we have narratives around that are not quite what we think, or the things we find that we think, oh, you know, if I do this with my money or with my finances, then this is going to be the result, and it's going to be a catastrophe. And then we may find that if we have to do that thing, that maybe it's not a catastrophe. You know, it's just like, oh, okay, well, that was annoying, but, you know, it actually, yeah, I'm still here and I'm fine. So, you know, it's kind of like breaking down some of these ideas that we have. But in Piscean space, we're not really sure necessarily where things are going at the moment. But there's going to be a lot of that highlighted with these retrogrades. Okay, 4th house, we have Horus. So that does put the spotlight on family to a certain degree, because Horus is definitely a card of family and home. So we may be, I know that there's a lot of people right now working through issues of ancestry, issues connected to the past, and we have it with the air element card. It's funny, we've got a couple of elemental cards here. So again, this is also about communication. Now, again, with Mercury retrograde and free shadow coming up, this suggests to me that we are, I don't know, there could be communications within the family. There could also be miscommunications within the family. Now, this is especially the house of the mother. So I don't know for some people if this is a matter of negotiating mother energy or things that have to do with that. But this is Cancerian, and we've got this, again, we've got this mercurial kind of element. We have air. I mean, Mercury, yeah, we've got this, you know, this idea of communication, of something that has two sides. I mean, you could think of air element as Libra and also as Aquarius as well, just like we saw in this house. But I don't know. There seems to be either a lot of thought going into something or a lot of discussion. Some people could be in therapy talking about things. There could be just discussion, or there could be an investigation of ancestry. You know, there's just a whole lot that seems to be going on. And Joanne says, oh, thanks. I mentioned it because we had this discussion in our first meeting as an LLC. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, right. Like, what are your values? Well, certainly establishing your mission, values, purpose, and all that stuff is definitely a core part of starting up any kind of an LLC. So that yeah, it makes a lot of sense that you're doing that. So we've got this. I don't know. I feel like there's going to be communications around family, or there's going to be a need to investigate things around that. And again, I always feel like when Horus shows up, it's trying to heal things. It's trying to heal past patterns. Or it could be a situation, if you're in a difficult situation, it's trying to help you kind of work through it, you know, in a certain way. And yeah, so I feel like we are, I don't know, we're being called to kind of vocalize those issues. You know, communication has a lot to do with the throat chakra, right? It has to do with the Vishuddha, where we are talking, we're using our voices to express these things. So I don't know. There's a lot that seems to be connected to family and ancestry here. And I think this makes sense with the idea of letting go of past patterns, because there's a lot of things that we've had that we call tradition. And they may be traditions that worked perfectly fine at one point, but now they're not. There's a reason to question them. Again, with air, there's mercurial energy, but there's also that Aquarian energy. And when we talk about Aquarian energy, this is calling for new thought. This is saying, we're not doing things the same way. And we've talked a bit about this as we've gone through things. Okay, our 5th house, which is Leo, we actually have Isis. Okay, which is interesting. Isis in this deck has kind of a high priestess vibe, but it also has a very maternal kind of vibe. So for some people, this is going to have to do specifically with children, and so I'm thinking some of this could have to do with mother-child relationships. This can also have to do with the ways in which we have compassion for others. Now, Leo house can also have to do with love affairs. It can have to do with creative projects, and it can have to do with our children. It has to do with things that are created, and also ways in which we have fun. Okay, and we have it with the moon card. Okay, this is a lot of moon energy here, and this is in the house of fire. This is in the house of Leo. So again, Leo is also about where we're recognized. So yeah, there seems to be this strong emphasis on mother energy here. I don't know what this is about specifically, or if this is a specific message for somebody, but there definitely seems to be this thought about that. Now, this could be people who who are spending more time focused on their children, if they have children. This could be that maybe something that you are doing creatively is going to be an expression either of that relationship, or it may be something that's a little more watery or a little more intuitive in terms of what you are actually creating or what you are doing. I always feel when Isis shows up that there's definitely a need for deep compassion and empathy. If you're in a love affair, and I say love affair, I mean like, an unlegalized kind of situation that's a romantic relationship. Leo and kids, performance season. Well, yeah, right. That's true. That could be right. So there could be this focus on that if you have kids, for sure. But I also just feel like there's a need to focus. This may also be about refocusing on the heart as well, and also focusing on what benefits the group rather than just the individual. Although sometimes I do see Isis as a card of self-care as well. Well, and as I've said to people, self-care has to come before community care. If you haven't addressed yourself and your own needs, then you may not be able to address anybody else's needs. So yeah, a lot of emotional energy here. And a lot of this kind of family mother type energy, because again, the moon tends to have to do with mother energy because it's Cancer rules. The moon is ruled by moon rules Cancer. Said that correctly, and Cancer is the house of the mother and the family. So yeah, seems to be something around that. So it could literally have to do with somebody's kids, or it could be more the way in which we are creatively trying to get in touch with the heart space. Or again, seeing how those past patterns maybe work through creatively in some way. Okay, 6th house, Virgo house, we have the twins. Okay, so this is the house that has to do with our health issues, things that we're worried about. It can have to do with domestic animals for some people, and it also just has to do with our routine and the way that we organize things. And so this is interesting. We have the twins with the South Node. Okay, so it's funny because the South Node currently is in Virgo, and we just got the South Node card here. So yeah, so this has to do with, okay, when I see the twins in a house like this, this is the idea that there's either a concern about somebody else, or we need to turn to somebody else to kind of help deal with our worries, concerns, and maybe people to help us out. If our routine has become something that's overwhelming, if we're in a space where we feel like if our South Node energy has to do with, I have to do it all and I have to do it perfectly, then this may be saying, you need to reach out and see who's in your community and who can help you. That is also very Piscean. Piscean energy is about community. It's not about just focusing on the individual. It's focusing on what's possible, not on what limits us. So this suggests to me that a lot of anxieties that you may be having, things that you may be worried about, could even be worried about another person. Again, take it as it resonates there. But I feel like this South Node energy is saying, okay, this is the time to do cleanup on the past. This is the time to change routines. And that I think goes with everything that we've seen so far. Now, remember that the lower part of the houses, we are in the last house that deals with the individual. So this is all stuff you're doing on an individual level for yourself in your life, the kind of inventory that you are taking in terms of how you approach the situations and the people that you meet up with, what happens to you in the world. So yeah, so that's interesting there. Seventh house, this is, okay, now we're moving into the collective houses, and this is Libra energy, and we have air. Again, more communications and so forth, because Libra is also an air sign, and Libra has to do with balance. It has to do with relationship. So again, there's a lot right here around talking. This is more a card of friendship than necessarily marriage. So maybe this has to do with business partnerships and contracts for some people. We have it with Black Moon Lilith. So Black Moon Lilith has to do with the ways in which we rebel, okay? The way in which we, rebel. Now, again, this is in the context of Libra, in the context of relationships. There may be, what I'm kind of getting in my head is a rebellion that's coming in to kind of, to rebalance things in a way. That there has to be a pushing back against our ideas. Now, in the 11th house, this would be our ideas about relationship. Remember, we've talked a lot about social acceptability and the way in which we feel that we need to be accepted by people and groups, and that a lot of our actions, we think about, oh, this is what I authentically want, but it might upset this group, or this person might not like it, or this one might not be this or that. Lilith suggests kind of a rebellious energy in terms of this. And sometimes in a relationship situation, this may be a sense of trying to bring to the surface something that's hidden. If there's a situation that hasn't been dealt with, or maybe where you feel like, maybe there's something that lurks in the background, but you don't know what it is, Lilith tends to bring this kind of stuff to light. And again, it's got that rebellious energy that allows us to change and to break, to kind of break things down. But again, air has a lot to do with communication, movement. It's a card of friendship too. So I don't know. I just feel like there's something, this oddly resonates too about contracts, is what Suda's saying. Well, yeah, exactly. And it could be very specifically in that way applying for you here. Like, yeah, like there's something here that's not quite above board when Black Moon Lilith shows up. But there may be a need to push back. Again, there's this idea of pushing back and not accepting the script. And I feel like this has to do with, partnerships. Seventh house has to do with partnerships that are legalized. So that's why it often has to do with marriage. And it can also have to do with, again, business partners, contracts, anybody who you're doing that kind of business with, or you have a kind of partnership with. But again, I feel like all of this stuff is kind of being brought to the surface because there is this kind of rebalancing that's going on. But there's changeability in the air. Now, before I go further, one of the things I do want to say in the astrology and the astrologers that I follow and that I look at, one of the things I've seen is, because we've seen February as kind of a tumultuous month, and they say Mars could actually feel worse in some ways. Mars. Ooh, I just said Mars. March. That's interesting that I said that. That's a Freudian slip of some kind. Mars does go direct, so I don't know. We may now be ready to just charge ahead with things that we haven't been able to, because, like I said, Mars will go direct in Pisces season. So that's going to be, like right around next Sunday, next Monday. So I don't know. So March is supposed to be a more, we could, in some ways, we could be feeling a little more grim. But again, that's kind of like reaching the depth before things finally start to go up again. It's going to be a very testy month, but we'll get into all the aspects when we get there. Okay, the 8th house. Okay, with Osiris, we have the Grand Trine, which is nice because the grand trine energy is a natural energy that flows. And what this is saying to me is that, okay, with regard to big changes, big transformations, things, eighth house has to do with things that are very, very deep, and also just things that kind of happen to us, like, births, deaths, loss. A lot of times this is a card of how we are transforming, and a house of how we're transforming. Has to do with joint finances and stuff as well. But you have this card of stability. You have Osiris, the Sagittarius energy, and you have it with the grand trine. So this seems to, I would read that as, okay, whatever the changes are going, roll with them. Like, the energy is going to carry you in the right direction. And you just need to be solid in yourself and in your own judgments. This may be why you're being asked to do this and to keep the faith in the first house, because it's saying, just have the faith that this is all going to be going to a good place, that we're going to end up in a good place with this. So, okay, so that brings us to the Sagittarius house, the 9th house, where we have the winged disc, the disc of the sun, and we have it with the 5th house card. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, so what are the possibilities for that? 9th house, winged disc in the 9th house. Yeah, that's, spreading your wings and soaring. It is actually the best card in Cartouche. Generally indicates overcoming obstacles, wishes granted. And this is in the house of Jupiter, which is connected to Leo in here. So this is the place where we can really fly, So this is about, again, yeah, this is about deeper matters. This is about going deeply into spirituality. This is about learning new things. It can be higher education, but it can just be about extending or expanding your education in some way, not necessarily like going back to school or something, although it could be that. And it also could be about traveling too, or somebody who's at a long distance. So for some people, this could mean a long distance relationship, or a relationship with somebody at a distance, or somebody in an academic setting. That's possible, or spiritual setting, because 5th house does sometimes bring love affairs. And again, that may or may not apply to people here, but that is one aspect of it. It can also indicate that this might be the place where you're going to shine. Like, okay, a lot of times we keep doing the same things and stay in the same milieu and do all the tried and true stuff. But it's when we expand our horizons and reach beyond the space we're usually in, the way we usually work, that's where our creativity is going to come in. That's where 5th house has to do with being recognized and being seen. So again, it's in this house of Jupiter. There's going to be a lot of opportunities, but these opportunities may be outside your comfort zone. They may be in a space that's a bit unfamiliar to you, which does not have to be a bad thing. It just could mean that, for some of you, maybe it is going to be a trip abroad or a trip to another place to be able to do something, or move or something like that. It can indicate, or it could be, like I said, a decision to go back to school, or it could be I think of it, when we think about play and we think about experimentation, this is almost like allow yourself to play with new ideas. I think that's the most general way to look at that. Now we're back to our Capricorn card here with in the 10th house, which is about what we are, what they call it the house of career, but it's also about what we are, what our public face is, what we give back to people. And like I said, there's some concern about this because of what we don't know, what hasn't happened yet. And again, here's the 3rd house card with this, which is interesting. That's more Mercury energy, so much around communications here. And again, the fact that we are going to be in this Mercury retrograde pre-shadow and then Mercury retrograde itself, in addition to the Venus retrograde, I don't know. This could literally mean that there are messages coming in that are going to make you anxious, or that are going to make you concerned about where things are going, or maybe what's happening with your career, or whether or not what you're doing is the right thing. But there's definitely a sense of, again, I've been seeing this in a lot of people's readings. It's like, okay, what you're nervous about now, you just need to wait. And 3rd house does seem to indicate messages coming in. So I feel like, and again, in Pisces season, I almost feel like you need to, if you are somebody who has an inner authority that's either emotional or sacral. So in other words, if you've done your human design chart and you know that your authority, a lot of people have either a sacral inner authority, which means, okay, somebody presents something to me and I go with what my gut says, or they have an emotional one, which says, okay, I go with what my feelings say. I feel like that's kind of what this is. Like there's going to be messages coming in, and your response to them needs to come from one of those places. If you're somebody without an inner authority, then it may be a case of, because I know at least one person here doesn't have an inner authority because they have their reflector type, I think. So you may just need to see what's being mirrored back. And that's probably, that would probably take into account all this stuff going on in the lower part about thinking about what you really value and who you are. And so that would be the space from where you want to operate if you don't have that particular inner authority. But yeah, so it does seem like there could be messages coming in, which would not be surprising, that may make us feel upset and like, we're not going to be able to do something, or make us question whether or not we're deceiving ourselves in what we're doing. But Nepenthes also says to me, we haven't reached the final act yet. We haven't seen the end of the play. Okay, our 11th house of Aquarius energy, we have Thoth. Okay, and Thoth has to do with, okay, this is the house, Aquarius house, friendships, social networks, and also what our goals are, the things what we're trying to accomplish. And so Thoth has a lot to do with, well, it has to do with healing, but it also has to do a lot with divine timing. Yep, that's me. I'm just waiting. Oh, that's Alex. Yep. Yeah, I was thinking about that with you. Oh, and this is interesting. I got the 11th house card in the 11th house. So yeah, again, I feel like this connects to what we saw in the 6th house, which is about friendships, support. There may be a focus on this, on your social networks, and how other people can help you realize your dreams. So yeah, there's definitely the sense, and with Thoth, it's like the right people coming in at the right time. That's what I'm kind of getting. That's right people coming in at the right time, making the right connections that are going to show you the path that you need to take. Now, in the 12th house, the actual Pisces house, we have the 6th house card. And that's funny because, yeah, in the 6th house is where we have the South Node. So we have Pyramid here, and we have the 6th house out. Okay, so Pyramid is an initiation. Okay, when Pyramid comes up, we are in a liminal space. We are on the threshold between who we were and what's new, where we're going, who we are. And again, there's worry with the 6th house, which is the house of worry, by the way. And so it's showing up in your soul house. There's this worry about breaking routine and that structure. Maybe that's why we're getting Ta down here as well, about building a new structure, because a lot of the structure that we've had has been torn down. And it may have to do with external events, but we may have torn down a lot internally too with the work that we've done. So this is about, yeah, getting out of routine, getting out of habit. And having Pyramid here, this feels like a test or an ordeal. This feels like a time when we are trying to figure out what, again, what the right thing is to do. So it's interesting that this whole reading has had a focus on, okay, the phrase coming into my head is, who are you really? Who are you really? And that's the thing that you want to explore during Pisces season. Who are you really? What are your values? And if you still have certain goals, certain things that you want to do, or if you don't know where you want to go, and it's perfectly okay to just stay in the present and not have an immediate goal. But, what are we doing with who we are? And are our goals, when we focus and worry about certain things, are we worried about the things that are truly important? Okay, because a lot of times society tells us that what we think is truly important isn't, Now, our overall card is nice, though, because the overall card is the Ankh, okay? And the Ankh is a card of, it's a card of life. So when Ankh comes up, I do often feel like that is major transformations that are going on, because it's kind of, I see it as like a life-death card. So it's kind of like, okay, there are major transformations going on, but there's also a focus on joy. There's a focus on what you're passionate about. I've been reading for a lot of people recently, and this is a theme that comes up a lot. That what is your joy? I'm sounding like Marie Kondo, right? But it's just like, where's your joy? What brings you joy? And the thing is, that part of the way if you're not sure, is if somebody asks you a question about a topic and you literally are like, you light up and you can do nothing but talk about it. That shows you where your joy is. Okay. I often do that even like with career advice. If I talk to people and they say, well, I could do this or I could do this. And I say, well, how do you feel about doing this? And they, oh my God, I love this. And then they just go on and on and on about all the things about it. I'm like, okay, that's what you need to be doing. That's where you need to go. And we have it with the Libra card. Okay, so this is about balance. It's about balance, creating balance. So this is what we want to do. We want to balance this excessive focus maybe on things that are too material, or this excessive focus on what we feel the outside world wants us to do. This needs to be balanced with what we're doing internally. It's not that we want to ignore the outside world, because it's there and you can't, we can't live in a bubble or in a vacuum. We always exist in relationship to the others. But how are we creating that balance, and how are we connecting with others? But you want to do it from the space of knowing who you are. So that seems to be the message. We're at 8:15, so I'm going to, because I have a few things coming up today, so I am, thankfully they're all kind of fun things today, so I like to kind of get on with them for the most part. And yeah, I got to do taxes and other stuff later in the week, so yeah, that will be the not fun stuff. But anyway, so that's the reading. So that's your Pisces season reading. If you didn't catch the whole thing, there will be the recording, so you can go back and start from the beginning if you want to see the whole thing. I thank you guys so much for joining me, as always. Love seeing everybody. And yeah, so I will catch everybody. I should be back. Yeah, I'll be on tomorrow morning. And I'll also be doing the Katonia live stream tomorrow as well at noon Eastern Standard Time, as always. So have a great day, you guys, and I'll see all of you